By the way, if you don't know, Dan also hosts a program on Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. It's called On the Money. Dan, over the past year, there's been a lot of weird changes with the IRS, who are trying to keep up with things, and I know that you are, especially when it comes to the CARES Act, Secure Act, and, oh, by the way, you don't have to act on taking money out of retirement accounts and things like that. It's just nuts. I mean, before we get into the meat of this thing, Dan, I'm wondering, how many changes occurred that can really affect people in their retirement accounts in the last year?
It's been monumental, Rick. I mean, it seems like, once the pandemic hit, they only did this one other time. Back in 08, 09, they happened to suspend required minimum distributions during the Great Recession because people had lost so much value in the retirement accounts. They didn't want people to have to drain them out when they were at a low. And they kind of did the same thing last year, but then they came up with they had the Secure Act, and then they had the CARES Act, and they allowed you to take money out of your plan if you weren't 59 and a half, but you have 3 years to pay it back. And the rules were just ridiculous last year, and I think people are really going to get jammed up with them. But, it's kind of funny, we always talk about baseball, and the baseball season just started. Now the IRS is throwing us another curveball because in the Secure Act, and let me just give you a little background, the Secure Act inherited IRAs. They changed all this. One of the major changes made by this was the elimination of the stretch IRA for many beneficiaries of inherited IRAs. So if an IRA owner died before 2020, his beneficiary could satisfy the RMD rules by spreading payments out over the beneficiary's life expectancy. So this was a great deal for a young beneficiary. That could be 60, 70, 80 years. You could spread the tax out on these IRAs. But Congress put an end to that stretch IRA for most beneficiaries who died after 2019 for non-spouse beneficiaries. The Secure Act replaced the stretch with a 10-year payment, and all it required was the entire IRA had to be paid out by the 10th anniversary of the IRA owner's death. So everybody thought the 10-year rule meant no annual RMDs were required, and that would give the beneficiary a lot of flexibility. They could take out as much or as little from the IRA in years 1 through 9, as long as the account was emptied by the end of the 10th year. And that's exactly how the IRS interpreted the old 5-year payout rule, because before the Secure Act, the 5-year rule was a payment option. If you had an IRA and you didn't name any beneficiary, then it went to the estate and went through the will and all, but it had to be empty within 5 years at the end of the 5 years. But just recently, the IRS surprised everyone with a recent revision of Publication 590, and they're treating the 10-year rule differently than they treated the 5-year rule. They're hinting, now again, this is not law yet, but they're hinting that the 10-year rule is going to require annual RMDs to be paid in years 1 through 9, and the remaining funds to be paid out in year 10. Now, I need to stress that this is an apparent interpretation. It's not official guidance. So I'm not recommending any beneficiaries take RMDs out yet until later this year, when the IRS will hopefully clarify this mess with some official guidance.
Well, Dan, this is the first year of this, right?
Yeah, so if the person died in 2020, this would be the first year you would have to take a distribution. And we've been telling people, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything. You have to have it empty by the end of 10 years, because that's the way they did the old rule. But there's some confusion now about how they're going to interpret this 10-year rule.
Is it fair to assume the government wants your money?
That's very fair to assume all the time. Two things in life you can't avoid, Rick. Death and taxes.
True enough, and they get their hands on it. So side of caution, though, take one just to be cautious, or are they going to have a determination sometime?
They should have a determination later this year. So we're not recommending to any of our clients to take anything yet. Now, that being said, I mean, if it's a large IRA account, like we had a 30-year-old inherited an $800,000 IRA from her mother, well, whether you got to take it out, require minimum distribution every year or at the end of 10 years, I mean, for it's $800,000. You ought to be spreading that over 10 years, no matter how you slice it,
So she's got to take the $80,000 out and withhold federal and state taxes on that.
Correct. But if she waits, so that 80 gets added to her income for 2021.
Yeah.
But if she didn't take anything out for 10 years, then she's adding, probably $1 million to her income in 2031.
If she was allowed to do that. I mean,
right.
Really,
if you're allowed to do that.
I mean, in the perfect, contemporary IRS-led world, it would be great if she just leave the money in there until she's like 60, 65, wants it, and says, you know what, let it grow. I can retire early in my 50s, maybe, something like that. But no, they're not going to let you do that, are they?
Right. And the bottom line is, you don't want to bunch it up. It's kind of like taking the 2 RMDs in the same year when you first become RMD age. If you wait until April of the year after you're required to take money out, then you got to take 2 out that year. It's kind of the same thing with the inherited IRAs. You don't want to wait till the 10th year and take it all out at once. It's probably going to kick you up into a much higher bracket. You want to try and spread those distributions out over the 10 years.
I'm just sitting here thinking, what a pain.
My gosh.
It's great to inherit it. That's right. Thank you, Mom. I love you. That's lovely. And then you look at this, you think, but again, they could have fines and penalties and all that kind of stuff years down the road. So talk to a professional. Make sure that they know what they're talking about as well. What about, like, for example, you don't have to do any of that now. They died in 2020. That doesn't happen until the end of the year. It's best to do that maybe September, November, December, whatever. But you don't want to wait to the end. I mean, I imagine that a lot of these people who work for these funds, they're getting pretty socked in with a lot of work at the end of the year, aren't they?
Well, that's exactly it. That's why the IRS is going to have to come out with some guidance on this, Rick, because, you're absolutely correct. In the month of December, if you wait too long and you've got to take some distributions out, these guys get all jammed up in December because everybody waits till the 11th hour. And then they're inundated with, hey, I got to get money out. You want to try and do it a little bit before that. And hopefully, I would think within the next couple months, the IRS will issue guidance on this.
All right. Appreciate that. Dan White and Associates, 888-690-8820, 888-690-8820. As you start your Sunday morning, 7 a.m. with Dan and the show here on WDEL called On the Money. What are you guys talking about this Sunday?
Yeah, this week we're going to talk about something, Rick, that people really need to get a handle on: procrastination on estate planning. Most people don't have any estate plans in place, and with the Biden administration coming in, there's some moves that I'm going to talk about. You might want to take a look at. You might want to implement them sooner rather than later.
All right, appreciate that. Dan White on the Money, 7 a.m. Sunday mornings. Good talking to you, my friend. Be well. Go Phils.
Go Phils. Have a great day, Rick.